the world has no shortage of agencies that can help with lead generation and marketing and so forth, right? And there's great companies out there doing that, obviously, and you know that. The challenge is if I'm an industrial manufacturer and I hire a lead generation organization, but I can't execute on those leads and turn the leads into, we use the term lead to revenue. If I can't turn those leads into revenue, how long am I going to stay working with that agency? The agency could be performing perfectly, bar none. There's no issues with what the agency is doing. But if I don't have the ability to put that through my network and turn those leads into dollars, how long am I going to keep that group around?
Welcome to IndustrialSage, a free video podcast series all about digital marketing for industrial manufacturers. Hear interviews with your peers and find out how they're solving the same challenges that you might be facing in your own field. Coming to you from the Optimum Production Studio in Atlanta, Georgia, this is IndustrialSage.
All right, so let's jump into today's episode. I have Kevin Brown, who is the co-founder and CEO of LeadSmart Technologies. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today on IndustrialSage.
Happy to be here, Danny. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so for those who aren't familiar with LeadSmart Technologies, tell us, who are you? What do you guys do?
Well, we like to sometimes describe ourselves as a business accelerator platform. So we're a SaaS software company that builds three different components, where we combine three different components that people typically use within their business that bring three critical issues into business growth. The first part of it is a CRM system, which is a little different than what most people would realize in the past from their experience using CRMs. We've taken out a lot of the clutter. We've really put processes and workflows and things in to streamline the CRM process. But typically when somebody comes back, we can use a trade show or an event of some sort as an example. Somebody comes back with a large amount of information. Oftentimes that gets dumped into Excel. It gets sorted. Part of it goes into their CRM. Part of it's dumped. And then it just gets sent out typically by email to their channel partners, their internal sales team, their manufacturers reps, their distributors, their distribution network. What LeadSmart does is it takes that data, and then we have a marketing automation component of it as well. So we take that lead, work with marketing automation tools to turn that into what we like to refer to as a sales-ready lead, as opposed to just a lead, right? Somebody's not coming by to win the golf putter or see the pretty girl. We like to describe it as a sales-ready lead. But then this is kind of where the magic happens, as I like to describe it, is when that lead is now ready to go to your channel partner, whether it's your sales team, your direct sales team, or it's an independent rep or broker or agent, and then onto your distribution partner or your distributor, that's where our channel management component of our product. So as I mentioned, there's three components to it: CRM, marketing automation, and channel management. And we automate the process of following that lead from where you got it at the show or event to them becoming a customer or them opting out and being somebody that just goes into a nurture cycle in your marketing program. One of the biggest challenges people have in business, right, is we like to phrase it as the black hole lead crisis. Is you get all these leads, right? Marketing wants to know what sales is doing. Sales says, oh, those leads weren't that good. We're in this vicious cycle that happens. And the executives that wrote the check for that show or event are saying, somebody tell me about our return on investment.
What do we get out of this? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly
I
right.
like that. The black hole lead crisis. I'm gonna use that. I'm calling you guys, but that's awesome.
It's copyrighted. Just kidding.
Excellent. So, all right. So tell me. All right. Sounds like an awesome tool. Sounds like a lot of people could use that.
Yep.
Tell me the story on your background and why you guys started this.
Yeah, so there's three of us that started the company. My co-founder, Tom Burt, who's our chief operating officer, and Steve Snap, our CTO. We've had lifelong relationships just about, in fact, it's kind of scary to say, but Tom and I are actually friends since kindergarten.
Oh, that's awesome.
But, isn't that crazy? Yeah, but we've done a number of business projects over the last 4 or 5 years together. And Tom has a technology background. He's started and exited multiple software companies. He's a old school coder. And then Steve, my other partner, we've been involved in doing CRM related work together about 15, 16 years now. We worked together first time, I think in 2003 he came into a company. I was involved with a manufacturing company that I had been involved with. And Steve developed our CRM system for us. And so really the background of the company is you and I have talked about before, is I've spent 25 plus years in the industrial world. So I started working for a large national distributor in the industrial safety market.
Hmm.
And when I was right out of school, spent a number of years there, left that company, started a manufacturer's rep agency. So I spent 10 years before I sold that company in 2003. I spent 10 years in that middle portion of the distribution network as the independent rep. And we represented some pretty large organizations. We handled some products for DuPont, as an example, for California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii. We're a West Coast based company in Southern California. And so I was that guy in the middle of the food chain that got those leads from the factory. In those days, they came sometimes by email, but typically still came by fax in the early 90s and through into the early 2000s. But I was the guy that had to work with the distributor and find out what was the right distributor to get the lead to, and then try and follow up, try and get word back to the folks at companies like Gojo and DuPont and so forth that we were working with. And it was just always a struggle. So I dealt with the problem as being a distributor rep. Then I dealt with the problem as a manufacturer's rep. And then in 2003, I exited my my manufacturer's rep agency and invested in a manufacturing company. So now I was the guy that was paying the bill to go to the trade show, generate all the leads, send them out to my manufacturer's reps who got them onto the distributor, and I had to deal with the black hole. But now the black hole was my money. And it was a whole different segment for us. So I've continued to watch this the last 8 to 10 years. I've been working mostly on a consulting basis and doing some advising work with companies in the distribution world. So both industrial safety, environmental, the electrical market, and the consumer electronics market as well. And everywhere that I've been, we've had the same problem. A couple of years ago, I sat down with Tom and Steve, my two co-founders. We were talking about this significant problem. Tom and I were doing some consulting with an offshore company that was coming into the US market. We were helping them with some digital marketing, some traditional marketing, and some go-to-market strategy work with them. And they needed a solution to deal with the leads that we were helping them generate. And that's the genesis of LeadSmart. It was the three of us sat down, and frankly, it was Tom, my co-founder, who said, you know what, we've built parts of this already. We've put these pieces together. Let's finalize it, form a company. And we commercialized the product and really launched the beginning of this year with the idea that we can help people solve the problem from getting the lead to turning it into a sale and automating the process all the way through.
Yeah, now that makes a lot of sense. There's a huge need for that right now. I kind of want to talk a little bit about that challenge. I mean, obviously there's a lot of challenges in there, but specifically
Sure.
sort of, that working with your dealers or your distributors, from lead tracking to following up, because there's a lot of different ways of being able to do that. What are some tips and some tricks or some ideas that you have around to really sort of facilitate that, make that a little bit easier?
Sure. So what's interesting about in your comment, and I'll throw something back to you, and let's play a little volleyball here. So I would suggest you're 100% on track when you start talking about lead attribution, scoring, and different things like that you can do on a marketing side, right? And there are phenomenal ways that we can see activity through the marketing automation component of LeadSmart. We can do all of that. The challenge I believe that people have, right, in one of our first discussions, we talked about this a little bit, which I believe is critical. The world has no shortage of agencies that can help with lead generation and marketing and so forth, right? And there's great companies out there doing that, obviously, and you know that. The challenge is if I'm an industrial manufacturer and I hire a lead generation organization, but I can't execute on those leads and turn those leads into, we use the term lead to revenue. If I can't turn those leads into revenue, how long am I going to stay working with that agency? The agency could be performing perfectly, bar none. There's no issues with what the agency is doing. But if I don't have the ability to put that through my network and turn those leads into dollars, how long am I going to keep that group around? So from a marketing standpoint, you know what, you're exactly right. There are great ways that we can do that. What LeadSmart does a little bit differently is what we say is, okay, now that we've done the marketing tools, we've got a lead generated, and we continue to nurture it. We continue to watch and track engagement. We move now over and get that lead into the sales network. And what LeadSmart does is it automates that process and tracks really track two things. And this is a big differentiator for us. We track the lead activity. So we can see on an ongoing basis, is that lead coming to a webinar? Are they clicking on a link, going to a video? Are they opening our emails? We have all of that data there, right? We understand that. But what historically has been missing in what you're asking about from those tips and tricks, what historically has been missing is, okay, now I got it out in the field. What's the field doing with it?
Right.
And what LeadSmart does is LeadSmart scores and tracks and manages two things. One's what is the lead doing? We can track that. But two, now we can track what activity is going on with our field sales network, our manufacturers reps, our distributors. Are they having activity? Because what LeadSmart does is it sends out of the box. LeadSmart does it once a week. We can make it daily, weekly, monthly. It sends out an email that has hyperlinks with it for every lead that's been assigned to a manufacturer's rep, a salesman within a manufacturer's rep agency, your own sales team, and your distribution partners. They get that email every week, and it shows them. We use a series of red light, yellow light, green light based upon the timing since the lead's been contacted. And then we use another series of icons that actually shows the engagement of the lead. So if I'm a manufacturer's rep for XYZ Manufacturing, or I'm a distributor of their product, I'm getting an email every week that shows me all of the leads that have been assigned to me. It shows me in that list engagement level of the lead. Are they continuing to be engaged? And then it shows me by red, yellow, or green light how long it's been since I've contacted them.
Absolutely. No, that sounds great. That sounds fantastic because, there's a lot of stories over here where you mentioned that, you go to a trade show and you've got leads, or maybe the manufacturer is developing leads on their side and they pass it on to a dealer or distributor, and then it crickets, or I've heard, horror stories where we send you leads, and then nothing. Like they sit there and nobody does anything with them. Right. Or depending on how it's set up, we have really no way of having any attribution to have a sense of, do they close that deal? We don't know because they're buying in bulk, and we can't, we don't have the insights and that data to be able to see that.
We live in 2019, almost 2020. We have access to so much data. But if you can pull all that data together in a single location that says, I know exactly what's going on with my business and my business as it relates to you, my distribution partner, whether you're an independent agent or you're a distribution partner that's selling the product, where you can sit down and say, not only did you sell this much and we partnered on these sales opportunities, but here's all of the leads that we've sent you in this period of time. Here's how they're all categorized. You've either been really successful or maybe you haven't. We have real actionable data so that we have these meetings. We leave these meetings saying, here's what we're going to do moving forward, because we know about what our marketing efforts did, and we know what the sales efforts did, either successfully or unsuccessfully. And it's all tied to a series of simple reports because we brought all the data together in a single location. That's what starts making real business changes.
Absolutely, that makes a ton of sense. So if I heard, obviously let's stay top of mind, and there's a whole myriad of ways of being able to do that. The other piece was providing that lead data and say, hey, this is what we're doing for you guys. This is our value to you, and this is how we're doing to help to facilitate business to make it easier for you.
Right. I think I'm sorry to interrupt. I think you're right. Could not be more on track with that, because everybody's busy, right? The more technology we get, the busier that we all get. And if we can have ways that we can filter down or we can distill information down that's able to be communicated between partners, it just becomes critical, because everybody's clamoring for our time, right? Your phone's probably buzzed 10 times the time we've talked. Mine's been doing the same. Everybody wants our attention. And so we start talking about that relationship of a manufacturer and a distributor and whoever is in between that. Nobody has free time. So how do we put tools in place, right, and processes in place that really refine the time that we get from each other to maximize those opportunities? And you know what, as a manufacturer, if you're giving, it's not just about having a great product, right? If you have a great product, that's wonderful. but you still need to keep everyone's attention.
Right.
And you still need to stay top of mind with them so that they're out talking about your product. And you can now prove to them, if you have the right data, you can prove to them why it's advantageous to do that and be putting more energy into you than others because you're able to track and manage it.
Okay, so I'm going to drill down a little bit more on that whole top of mind piece. What are some concrete ways that these manufacturers can say, hey, this is how I'm going to stay top? I mean, obviously we said, okay, we're share data to be able to say, this is what we're doing for you. These are leads that we're generating for you. What are some other ways that me as a manufacturer say, okay, that are outside the box? Let's not compete on price, all right? Because that's going to be the number one, right? We're going to go to that. How do we? What are other ways that I can stay top of mind?
Well, I think, the reality is, here's my commercial for you and what you do is, the reality of it is there are just so many tools now that we can stay in front of customers, right? Whether it's I can tell you, yesterday you opened version 7 of LeadSmart Insights,
yes,
our weekly newsletter.
Yep.
I know that you opened it.
Yeah.
Because I have a report that told me.
Yep.
Right. I could now turn that into an actionable call or reference or whatever we wanted to do with that. But there's so many avenues, right? So whether it's our email marketing, it's trade shows and events, but trade shows and events that are super well planned with a design structure of what they want to accomplish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or how many meetings do I have with them? Does each of my team members have coming into that? What are our events and what's our follow-up plan, right? And it's not just, hey, we come home from a show and send an email out that says, would you like a catalog, right? It's what are we going to do with that? What's actionable during the show? What's actionable after that show or event? And then we start talking about video, which, you do such a great job of developing content with that we, all of us that follow you on LinkedIn sees regularly. Video is the thing right now, right? That's why we're not recording a audio podcast, right? I'm in my office in Irvine, California. You're in Atlanta. It's like we were sitting next to each other. These tools are available and people are busy, right? But we're developing content right now that can be consumed from somebody on their phone, on a tablet, on their laptop. They could show it on a monitor in an office. They could, it can be consumed however they want. So I think that omni-channel term that's sometimes used is that we're getting multiple approaches. And for a manufacturer, really where you want to be is you don't want to just be top of mind with your customer and your end user. You're going to be top of mind with your distribution partners. Mm-hmm. And if you can be top of mind with both of those, you win.
Yeah.
Right. Because your distributor is going to be more engaged because he sees what you're doing with his customer, the end user.
Yep.
Right. So he would be remiss not to give you the attention and be top of mind because he knows that you are killing it with the content that you're developing, video, email, whatever the traffic that you're working on to develop, or content you're working on to develop there, is if you are top of mind at the end user and you're doing similar outreach to your distribution network, you win.
Yeah, absolutely. No, man, I love it. We're done. I think this was a great episode. Kevin, there's a lot of great things that I can unpack from this. So, as we're kind of wrapping, I just would, what parting words?
Oh man, that's so. I'm going to share a phrase with you that I use about our business, right? So I've spent my career selling physical hard good products, and now I'm a technology guy. In the technology world, we talk about that. I use the phrase all the time that says people want outcomes. They don't want more software.
That's a great thing.
And I think it's the same way when we talk to people in the industrial world, right? People are looking for outcomes from your widget, whether it's, a vise, a hydraulic hose, a hard hat, a safety glass, whatever it might be. Your end user is looking for a great solution. How do you inform those? How do you inform that end user and get them clarity on your message? It's about marketing. Once you do the marketing right and use some of the tools that you talk about regularly in your ongoing episodes of this show, when you get that going right, and then you put technology in place to manage and track that that's actually happening, you get to win the game, or at least be in the top place on the game, because you've touched people at all ends of the network by providing a great product that you already know how to make. But when you put the right marketing tools into that, and then the right management on the sales process, it really makes a difference because you have insight and data.
Yeah.
Right? I use the phrase regularly related to our product LeadSmart is LeadSmart gives manufacturers both visibility and accountability into their sales process, right? And when you have insight that has visibility and accountability, you're in a great spot moving forward. So I think people that are watching this content hopefully can look at the marketing tips and tools that you provide on a regular basis, start interjecting those into their business to grow.
Awesome. Kevin, this has been a great episode. We'll put your contact information in the show notes. So if anyone wants to learn more about you guys, they can totally do that. I don't know, are you big on LinkedIn or Instagram, Twitter, anything like that?
So Twitter we're getting better with, and I should say Instagram we're getting better with, but we do quite a bit on Facebook, Twitter. It's pretty simple. I'm LeadSmart at LeadSmart CEO on Twitter, and I am extremely active on LinkedIn. It's pretty much every day.
Awesome.
So and all of our company content goes out through all of those channels.
That's the place to be. Okay, Kevin, thanks so much. It's been
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Anytime. All right. Okay. I'm gonna try to remember what to unpack because we covered so many great things. But you know what? I'm gonna recap it with what actually Kevin mentioned right there at the end, and I love it. And he said, and I wrote it down: people want outcomes. That's the big thing. Let's look at the business objective. Let's look at the results. Let's look at what we're after, not necessarily the means. We had in a previous episode, we were talking about how there's a million different technologies and different things that you can use, and sometimes we can get all I could use this and I could use this, and it's really, let's look at the end of the day, we need to create those outcomes and making sure that we have all the right pieces in place. But I love how Kevin was talking about just sort of that life cycle of generating leads. So you generate that lead, and then you develop them, and you pass them off, and then somehow, I'll look at my notes here again. We have the black hole lead crisis. I think we're all guilty of that. We all know that can happen. So how do we fix it? Let's fix it. Let's get that solved. Maybe there's a piece of technology we need to bring in. Maybe LeadSmart technology could help solve that for you. Maybe not. Let's look at ways to, how do we stay on top of mind for our distributors? How do we, Kevin brought a lot of great insights on how to be able to do that. Making business easy for you, making sure that you go do events and trade shows, you actually have a plan. So anyways, I could go on and on and on. Great episode, a lot of takeaways for me. People want outcomes. That's the big thing for me. Is just always think from a strategic standpoint, like what we're doing and where we're going, what's the outcome? Let's start with what we want first and then reverse engineer it. So half of us are engineers, right? I'm not an engineer, but there's a lot of engineering types here. So anyways, that's it. I'm going to stop rambling. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Industrial Sage. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. You can reach out to us, industrialsage.com/questions. Be on the lookout for a bunch of other episodes we've got every single week. We're going to be creating these and sending these to you like we have for the last 2.5 years. And that's it. I'm done. Thanks for watching. I'm Danny, and I'll be back with you next week on another episode of Industrial Sage.